Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Powell Chi. I'm about to go live here. Well, I guess I am live. Going live here to talk today. Let's talk today about self-storage investing. And this is kind of a live stream that I do. I used to do it every week, but I guess nowadays I do it whenever I have the time to do it. So this week, I do have some time, and I closed on a recent deal. So today we're going to talk about the lessons that I learned on closing a recent deal. But before doing that, I just want to kind of make sure that you guys can hear me at all. So if you guys are in here, could you like tell me, give me a thumbs up, or I guess maybe I need to let me know if you can hear me or not. I just want to make sure that oops, we don't need that. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear me before I start talking and going over too much. So anybody there that can let me know if you can hear me or not? Let's see. Just trying to see if can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, and that will help me out, just to let me know, and I can go from there. And I'm looking for and stuff, just a way that I can show you. Where I'm at, and that before I just really get started. I don't know, I've had a couple times where I've tried this and started going, and then all of a sudden nobody can hear me, and then I'm like doing this live, and it doesn't sound very good if you're going live by yourself and nobody can hear you. So just 1 second here before I just really get started. I don't know, I've had a couple times. Okay, perfect. I think it works. I'm trying to get some, where's the comment section? I haven't used this in a little bit, and it's taken me a little while to kind of get used to here. But usually there's a way that I put in if you type in the comments, that I'll be able to see it. Okay, I think it works. Okay, let me just test this really quick. Test. Seeing. Okay, talk to your audience. Okay, copy the link. Okay, here we go. Okay, now we can. I think I'm writing to you right now just to let you know that where you can talk with me. Let's see. Okay. So I think that if you can type in the chat, then you can answer any questions and interact with me, because I really try to make this as interactive as possible. I don't really want it to just be me talking the whole time without anybody. So if you're there, chime in. Let me know where you're from, where you're at right now. I live in Los Angeles, and I'm happy to talk about self-storage investing. We'll get started here in just 1 second. So hey, I see Eric. My buddy Eric, how you doing, man? Great to see you. Today we're going to talk about closing our last deal. So I know that you know about it, but and feel free to chime in with anything as well, Eric, if anything pops up in your mind about closing any deals. But so today's topic: closing, lessons learned from closing our last deal. All right, and there are so many lessons to learn. I try to group them into categories, and I'm going to go over those categories. I kind of went over 5. Hope we'll get to all 5 today, but I really want this to be, like I said, as interactive as possible and not just really me talking. Before I get into that and get into the 5 things that we'll learn, the lessons that we'll learn today, if you do have any questions, please type them in the chat. Type them in the chat, because I can read them and I'll pull them and I'll answer all the questions at the very end. Okay. So I'd love to have some questions. I do have some questions that people have written in already. So that would be, and I'll get to those too. Let's see. Other things, if you do like or enjoy these type of things, I was trying to put them out weekly, but truthfully, that just doesn't happen weekly anymore. So I try to put them out when I have something good to talk about, something that's interesting, and that's something that people can learn and feel like get some value out of it. Then I'm going to try to put these out. So I think that there's something good this week. So if you do like it, love it if you give me a like or subscribe. Truthfully, the one thing that really helps me is that I have like a YouTube link, and it's like some random code, and I have to get a certain amount of subscribers before I can get before I can personalize my code and that kind of thing. But it's not a big deal. But love it if you give me a like or subscribe. But let's jump into it, right? So we're going to talk about 5 lessons I learned and things that could probably help you out as you're closing your deal and just things to prepare for. And then we'll get into Q&A at the end. Try to keep this, 45 minutes or so. We'll go from there. All right. Let's talk about lesson number 1. Let's get into lesson number 1. All right. So lesson number 1, I tried to group all these lessons, these series of lessons into one particular topic. And the topic is really about the property. Okay. And so some of the things that you're doing and lessons you're learning when you're doing on site at these properties is one of the first suggestions I tell people is to really make sure that your property manager is there with you when you are walking the property. Okay. Sounds kind of elementary, but I know that sometimes your property manager and your schedule don't always meet up, but you really want to make sure that your property manager is there, because if you have a third-party property manager, and not everybody does, but in my case, I do, we want to make sure that we are communicating with them and they see the property and we get their perspective of the property. Like, what do they think about it? Do they think that, hey, this property is great, it's awesome, they can't wait to take it over because they think they can do everything that we think that we can do? Or are they a little bit hesitant because it has certain limitations in certain areas and they've had certain experiences that would lend to them to think that, hey, it may not work out as well as you might think. So you want to be on site with them so that you can get a good feel of it. Not only walking the area, but you're walking different floors, you're walking the different buildings. There's different construction. Sometimes you're working it with a masonry building, and like our last one, it's in Norwich, Connecticut, masonry building, 4 stories. And so you're walking each floor, right? You're looking at each floor, and there's different builds on each floor. Sometimes they're wooden construction. Sometimes they're metal construction. Sometimes there's like chicken wire fencing sort of in between or up above them. So they have many different things that can be different on each floor as well, right? So some of on our floors, 3 out of the 4 floors are climate controlled, where 1 floor is not climate controlled, right? And that's something that we're looking at doing, but we want to talk to our property manager. Okay, well, what do you think about doing this 4th floor as climate controlled or not, right? Get their opinion of it. So you definitely want to meet your property manager on site. I mean, I think that's one of the most important lessons that you can learn while you're out there, right? Second thing is you want to get a third-party market study of your area, right? So obviously when you're doing your due diligence and you're putting the property under contract and you're getting an idea of like, hey, what do I think about this market? Now, for an investor like me, I'm not focused on one central market. So I'm not just investing in my backyard where I know my backyard very well. A lot of investors are like that. And that's a strategy that you can do. But sometimes you're going to start getting into investing in places that you don't know so well. Maybe it's 4-hour drive from you. Maybe it's a 4-hour flight for you. I don't know. In my case, it's a 5-hour flight, 5 or 6-hour flight for me. So it ends up being pretty far. I don't know the area very well. And I start to do the research online, right? So doing all the research online and then talking to people about the market. Then you want to get a third-party market study done so that you have somebody else who's outside of you, who doesn't really have any, not necessarily skin in the game, can figure out what they think about the market itself. And when I talk about the market, they're looking at the population of the market. They're looking at household income, median household income, average household income, how many people are in, say, a 5-mile radius of you. Maybe if it's a more rural area, maybe it's a 10-mile radius. Maybe it's a 3-mile radius, right? They're looking at different demographics of your area. And maybe they also have some experience with some properties in your area. And so you want to get these market studies done. And they cost money, right? So you just have to build that into your budget, right? And you might not want to do it right away, just before you get a deal under contract. But as you get the deal under contract, pretty quickly, you want to make sure you get your market study done. And so we always do that. That's one of the things that we're looking for really quickly, is to get that market study and find out what is the square foot per capita that we see in this market in a 5-mile radius. And what if it's climate control versus non-climate control? What if it's A-class property versus C-class property? You want to know all those differences, and you want to get an idea from somebody else who is an expert in the field. Okay, so that's another lesson, I would say, going into sort of the property topics. All right. Let's see, what else do I have here? Early quotes. Okay, early quotes. So you want to get as many quotes, well, not as many as you can, but you want to get, say, three quotes on any type of CapEx project that you're thinking that you're going to do, right? So maybe it's the roof, maybe it's HVAC, maybe it's the parking lot, maybe it's the driveway. I don't know, whatever CapEx, major CapEx that you're going to incur, you want to get probably 3 quotes, maybe 5. I don't know. It depends on what you feel comfortable with, but you want to do them early. And especially nowadays, it's not something that just can be done super quickly. Like you would think that it could be done super quickly, and it probably can be done super quickly, but all the contractors, I don't know, it's all contractors across the United States are extremely busy. So they're super busy right now. And so they are not inclined to just go away from their job that they're getting paid for and that they have other jobs lined up to do, to go to your property to give you a free quote. So you need to start calling people early to get them there so that you're doing this within a timely manner. And you also, I would say nowadays, don't be alarmed when you start to see that this costs money. And so on our properties, some of these, it costs money to get say an HVAC vendor out there or a roofer out there. It's not like, hey, just go give you a free estimate and everything. Nowadays, it's like $500. You want one, and it's $500. And so because they're so busy and the demand is so high for so many different contractors, do not be alarmed if you have to pay for it. I guess I was a little alarmed, but I just realized that's part of the situation that we're in right now. So you got to pay that money and get them out there and get those quotes done early. Another part of this is that depending on where you're at, you may have seasonal considerations to think about as well. So this property is in Norwich, Connecticut, which, if you're not familiar with Norwich, Connecticut, it's wintertime. When it's wintertime, it's cold, and not as many people really want to go outside and, go onto your roof or go check out your HVAC or go check out your parking lot or whatever it is that you're getting them to look at and do it for free. And we're not really inclined to do that as much when it's freezing cold outside and it's the winter time. So when you're trying to close a deal that looks like it's going to close in April or May, well, then you probably needed them out there in December and January when it's ridiculously cold, and they don't want to be there. And so they're just not inclined to get it to you that fast. So think about that as far as just sometimes you have some winter considerations that things might move a lot slower than you would like them to. And if you got a due diligence or inspection period that is a short window, then you might run up right against that window, right? So if you have a normal 30-day window, it could be tight. If you have anything shorter than that, like a 21-day window, I hope you're, maybe you're just more efficient than I am. But that all said, that is about the property. So, those are the kind of things that I thought were lessons that I learned about the property. Meet your property manager out there. Get a third-party market study done. Might have to pay for early quotes, and you have to take into some winter considerations. All right. Hopefully that's sparked something in your mind as far as questions. But ask some questions. Put some questions. In the chat box. I can see all the questions, so put them all in the chat box, and I'll get to them at the end. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. Okay, lesson number 2 is on the legal side. So there's a lot of the legal team that you choose is very important. It's very important, and it's very important that you choose them early. Okay, so let me just back up a little, kind of what happens when you're closing a deal. So say you put out, say you find a deal, right? You go to a broker, you find a deal, you do some back and forth negotiations, and you send off your LOI. Eventually it gets accepted. Your LOI is a letter of intent. You send off a letter of intent. It has some terms that you want. You and the seller negotiate a few of them. You come to an agreement. You get it signed. Now you go from LOI to PSA, purchase and sale agreement, right? Now, purchase and sale agreement is a contract with you and the seller. Now you're starting to involve a legal team. So you either need to have these contracts already written, or you need to engage a lawyer to write this contract for you. Now, if you are basically LOI signed and you haven't got an idea of who to use for your legal side, you need to hurry up, because this is going to take a little while to do. So you need to figure out which legal team you want to move with. So that means, again, you kind of treat them as like a vendor. So you might interview 3 of them to figure out which one that you like, which one has a will work with you, communicate with you the way that you want to. The rates are what you feel are in line with what you're ready to pay for, and that you feel will do a good job for you, right? So you need to set up those interviews, set up those calls, get this done really quickly, make that decision, and then they're going to usually ask for a retainer. So it might be $5,000, might be $10,000. You're going to have to pay that retainer to them to basically to start the process and you be a client of theirs. Okay, so that all said, it needs to be done fairly quickly. You need to choose that team early. All right, and so once you've chosen that team, there's a couple things that I think that you should do early on. Now, I would say one of the things that I learned, on our deals is that you need to negotiate some type of flat fee, and it's flat fee for all the services that you may use. Okay. Now, you may use them just to help you with writing the purchase and sale agreement. So maybe they give you a flat fee for the documents for the purchase and sale agreement and reviewing the purchase and sale agreement. Okay. That's just part of it. Right. So, but you need to know, what is that fee going to be for that? Truthfully, if I think the flat fee is the way to go, but if you would rather go hourly, you can pay hourly. It's just, you don't know how many hours they sort of bill you for at the end. At the end, they say, oh, that was 5 hours or 2 hours or 10 hours. I don't really know, but you can go hourly. I would suggest you go flat fee. Second thing is you're gonna start to ask them to do like entity creations, right? So unless you're taking this property in your personal name, you're gonna have to create an entity that owns this property, right? And so since I have a team with me, it's not just me taking over this property. I have a team with me, so we're gonna create an entity, and you're going to want to make sure that that entity, is set up in the proper way. So this is what your legal team is doing, right? And you need to have your operating agreements. You need to have all kinds of different things, whether they're, joinders or signature pages and a bunch of different things that you need to get done. You need to have them, your attorneys probably register you in that state, right? They say they have to register you as a state. You have to get EINs. You can get the EINs yourself, or you can have your attorneys do that. And then you need to get the bank account set up. So it's kind of a lot of things that need to happen. And it doesn't sound like very much, like, hey, just get your bank account, but it takes a little while. And if you're not like on top of it and getting these things done fast, they can really delay your closing. And I would say the operating agreement is one that it's not a fast thing. It's not just like, okay, we got 6 people in this joint venture, and let's and just give us an operating agreement and we're good to go. It's like, well, is your operating agreement have different people who's in charge, and how are you guys doing your splits, and what's your equity breakdown, what's your depreciation allocations? You have all kinds of different things that potentially your attorneys may ask you, right? And so you need to have those questions answered so that then they can draft up the operating agreements for you and get those to you, and then get it registered with the state, get approval from the state. Nowadays, luckily, the states are moving a little faster. I did this back in November and December on another deal that we closed in February, and it was like the states were not moving very fast. Well, one state was not moving very fast at all, like a month out before you get registered, and which was ridiculous. And so, yeah, well, long way of saying you need to make sure that you are getting this done early, right? Negotiating flat fees. Now, so again, I would suggest you do a flat fee for the documents, right? So, okay, how much is it going to cost to do the documents? I want to know, is it going to be $2,000, $5,000, $8,000? Is it are we doing a like a syndication, well, it's not going to be $2,000. Not going to be probably $8,000. Probably going to be closer to 15, maybe like $12 or $15,000, right? So if you're syndicating, you even have more paperwork, right? You have the PPM, private placement memorandum, you have subscription agreements, you have a lot of that stuff that you need to get those attorneys to do that for you as well. Okay, so there's that. So you're negotiating a flat fee on the documents, okay? Separate from the PSA, right? Or maybe it's included in the PSA. Maybe you can get them to include it in the PSA, right? So negotiate those things. Third part of it, okay, it doesn't happen all the time. Sorry, let me get some water here. Thank you. Guess it's been a long time since I've done these talks, so it's like trying to learn how to swim again or something. Okay, so we've done those two parts of the legal side. The third part of the legal side, which doesn't come up all the time, but it has come up on at least my last two deals, and I can see it coming up more often on more of my deals, is that you'll need you'll need another attorney, or you'll need the same attorney to do like the closing, like a closing or transactional, or this is what I call it, closing attorney. That means they're working with you and the lender. So they're working with you on the lending side, right? So if you have a lender, right? So if you go into a bank, you're going to a CMBS lender, or you're doing some credit union, something, you probably have an attorney. You may have an attorney involved on their side who wants to talk to an attorney on your side. Okay. And doesn't always happen, but you just need to be prepared that you may need an attorney to represent you for the closing with the lender. Now, that is, again, another service that you probably want to negotiate a flat rate for, because you don't know how often your attorney is going to have to talk to the lender's attorney and how many documents they're going to have to go back and forth with, and red lines here and there. And you maybe think it's an easy thing. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But that is another service, and it can be, I don't know, $7,000 to $9,000, I guess, flat fee, somewhere around there. If you pay hourly, it could be a lot more. It could be a lot more. So let's see. So you may have to get a separate attorney for that. Your particular attorneys, you have to ask them, right? If you have an SEC attorney, or like a syndication attorney, and you're doing a syndication, I would say maybe half and half of them will maybe represent you, because they're also real estate attorneys, that maybe they'll represent you in a lender for the lender side. Some of them don't. Some of them are just like, no, I just do, syndication work. I just do syndication work. I don't do representation for you with you and your lender, right? So then you might have two separate attorneys involved. Right? Okay. Did I beat that to death? Or are you guys like, okay, enough attorney talk here? Let me see. Just some other things that if you do have an attorney, a closing attorney representing you on the for the lender side, I would suggest, this is a lesson learned, have regular calls set up, probably weekly, depending on where you're at, but weekly is probably good. Regular calls with the entire teams on there. So the first time I did this, there was like 11 people on the call. And I was like, 11 people on the call. I've never had 11 people on the call before for closing a deal. Never had that before. And then now it's become almost normal, right? So there's 7 people. There's a lot of people on the call. And you want to make sure, because everybody has different responsibilities, and there's a lot of things that need to get done that are little tasks. And if you don't know who's doing them, you lose track of who's doing what, and then everything gets held up. So for an example, on not this deal that I just closed, so this is a Connecticut deal, on my previous deal, okay, which was in Houston area. That deal, the tasks that we had that were between us and the lender, there was 88 tasks on there that needed to get done. So each one of these things needs to get done, and needs to get done by somebody. And usually it says, the lender is in charge of it. The lender's counsel is in charge of this. The lender is in charge of this. Borrower's counsel is in charge of that, or a borrower is in charge of this, so that you know who is doing what, right? So you're not in charge of all 88 things, but you need to get your stuff done. And then you also need to make sure your attorney's getting his or her stuff done. And you need to like kind of be on top of maybe their attorneys or their people to see like, hey, we already gave you our stuff and you haven't checked it off on the list and you need to get that stuff done. So I'm suggesting you have these weekly calls to get updates, right? They don't have to be long calls, but you need to, I would suggest you do that. Okay. One thing I know that I'm going to be doing is I've had 2 of these on 2 different closes, right, so far, and having these regular calls. Some of them were semi-regular, so I'm going to insist that we have them regular from now on if we have these type of calls. But I'm also going to say, as the borrower, as you're the borrower, you need to be more in control. And I haven't been. I've been more of like, okay, I'm letting the attorneys kind of talk and let them kind of decide what's going on. And a lot of times these calls are like very dry and very, task number 22, that's the lender. It's like, I need to be more in control of like what's going on and make sure that things are happening. And so at least lesson learned for me is to, do these regularly and make sure that I'm in more control of them. Okay. Last thing, as far as lending side, on the legal side, make sure you include an extension in your PSA. Okay. Nowadays things are kind of wonky and we're getting used to the normal, I guess, right now, but there's a lot of delays that happen and you want to make sure you have an extension in your PSA, right? So I always have a 30-day extension that, yes, I will put in extra earnest money so that they know I will close the deal, but I want to have this extension in there so that I'm not stuck on this particular deadline just because, and I can't close a deal because some third-party report didn't come in. Okay. All right. Hey, appreciate it. Let's see. We got a Facebook user with a comment. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Facebook users. Thank you. This is great. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. Let's see. Let's move on to lesson number 3. So that was lesson number 2. Okay. So lesson number 2 is all about legal stuff, right? Choosing the right team, do it early, negotiating flat fees, lender calls regularly, include extension. Questions on any of that, put them in the comments. I can talk about them more. Okay. So put them in the comments. Happy to answer any questions. All right. But I'm going to move on to lesson number 3. What do we have for time? Okay. We've been talking for half an hour. I'm going to speed this up a little bit if I can. All right. Lesson number 3 on the lender side. Okay. So lending side. I think these are to me, these are a lot of the very, very important things that you need to get done. But number 1, I would say, is use a good mortgage broker. Now, you can source your lending options directly. So in other words, you can go to the bank yourself and try to find who is the person that is potentially could lend to you and is interested in lending on self-storage. I suggest you find some good mortgage brokers who can help you, who have contacts that lend in self-storage and that understand self-storage. I use a couple, just so you know. I use a couple, and I have great relationships with them. So I don't use a ton. I mean, I use maybe 2 or 3, and they kind of all have different specialties. And you get, these people could become very important parts of your team. And they're great people. They're, we go out to dinner and they've taken us out to dinner. That's super nice of them. But you want to have a great relationship with them because a good mortgage broker can really be your advocate. They're going to tell your story for you, and they're going to find a lot of times they're going to find lending options that if you were to try to get them on yourself, even if you went to the same lender, you might not have the same reaction that you would get through a mortgage broker. Now, I will tell you, a mortgage broker, you are going to have to pay a fee for it. So they are going to charge you, right? So they're going to charge you a fee. I don't know. A lot of times it's like 1% or something, 0.5% of the purchase price, right? So they're going to get some cut, right? They're going to make some money, right? But that's their job is to do that. Now, if you can form a great relationship, you will they can become your advocate. Like we have great mortgage brokering lending relationships, and like I said, they will tell your story. So they will come in and tell your story for you, and they'll get things done that you might not have been able to get done. I'll give you just a quick example is that when I was just starting out, so for any of you who are just kind of starting out and you're trying to work with some lenders. I was calling up lenders myself and saying, hey, this is who I am. My name is Powell. I live in Los Angeles. At the time I was a multifamily investor, and I've invested in, I've done a bunch of syndications and feel like, I want to get involved with storage. Well, they were like, well, Powell, you want to buy this property. It's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You're nowhere near. You're in Los Angeles. Do you have anybody on your team that's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana? And I was like, okay, well, now I got to find somebody that's in Baton Rouge or somewhat close to it, because they wouldn't lend to us just because I wasn't near there. After a few properties, when I started working with my mortgage broker, one of them, like, he started working with some credit unions and some life insurance companies, and they didn't even ask where I was from. So I was buying properties around the Sunbelt area, Mississippi, Alabama, and they didn't really ask about whether or not I was local to that area, right? And so they just, him telling my story, and it wasn't like I had a ton of experience at that time either. It was just like I had one deal by then. So he was able to tell my story for me and say that, hey, it just kind of eliminated that need to have, a boots on the ground person, or have somebody within 100 miles of the property, or, who's going to be your local presence. Things like all these questions that came up to me from my direct relationships with banks. So the mortgage brokers were able to help me with that. And so nowadays that doesn't even come up anymore as a consideration, that I don't live by my properties. I mean, I don't live by any of them. So, hopefully that's an example of why to use a mortgage broker. Other things with the lending side. With the lending side, lessons that I learned both from my last two deals. Okay, so when you're initially getting, you're initially going to get some type of like term sheet from your mortgage broker or your lender, whoever it is, right? You're gonna ask them, hey, can you get me a term sheet? Tell me what the interest rates are. What's the amortization rate? How many years of interest only? All these different things, right? That you want to find term sheets. So you get a term sheet early on, so that you can do your underwriting and see, like, is this deal going to work with these terms that I'm getting from the lending side? And then when you look at all that, you start to bake that into your underwriting, right? And figure that out. Well, on my, not this deal that just closed. So this is deal number 8, not deal number 8, but deal number 7. So that was the one in Texas and Houston area. The rate that I was, I guess, quoted or saw in November was very different than what I closed in February. So the rate was almost a full point higher, like 1 full point higher. And when your interest rate is a full point higher, that's a lot. I mean, that's significant. And so that could ruin a lot of deals. Luckily, it didn't ruin ours, just because of the way that we underwrote it. We actually never used the actual quote that they gave us. We actually used a higher quote anyway. But when you're going into it, if you start to use the quote that you are getting early on, and then you don't actually close for 3 months or 2 months or whatever it is, a month, I don't know. You figured out if you don't close till that particular time, your rate can change, right? And so our rate went from, from a really good rate to all of a sudden went to, well, that's not a great rate anymore. Like, I mean, we're going to take it now because basically we're about a week away from closing, and now we're getting the loan commitment. Okay, the actual loan commitment, and so that can happen. So on deal number 8, we kind of learned our lesson from deal number 7. Deal number 8, I said, I'm very leery about the lending interest rate changing over time by the time we actually close. So we got the lender to give us a rate cap, and so they capped our rate. Basically, they said, hey, if you can, we're going to give you these terms right now. And as long as you close within 75 days of this signature, you will have this particular rate cap the whole time. After that, it's going to reset or whatever it's going to do. So just you got to close within 75 days. And so that was very good. I mean, because it came right up against that mark of 75 days. So rate cap, I would say it's something that you want to be aware of. All right. Next, third-party reports. So with your lender, the next thing you're going to do, so those of you who are just starting out with this, is that once you choose a lender, so now I've got a couple of term sheets from different lenders. I say, I like this one. Okay, I'm going to move forward with option B. Okay, I'm going to go with this lender. Now this lender is going to say, great, we need you to put down a good faith deposit. The good faith deposit is probably going to be $20,000, $30,000, right? 20, 30,000. I've seen as high as like $70,000. So don't be shocked if you come around that's like $50,000, and that's not on a big deal, right? It wasn't a very big deal. So be aware that at $20,000, $30,000 is pretty normal. So you put down a good faith deposit. Immediately, what that means is now they start to send out the third-party, start to get out the third-party reporting done. So they're going to work to get an appraisal. They're going to get a property conditions assessment. So it's PCA is often what it's called, PCA. And they're going to do an environmental study. So environmental phase 1 often is what it's called. So generally they're going to get those 3. They might also get a survey done, right? And maybe or maybe not. So those third-party reports used to take like 2 weeks, and then people would be able to get them back to you, right? 2 weeks, no problem. Now it takes like 6 weeks minimum. So like, not like maximum, but minimum 6 weeks before all of them come back. So if you have 30 days due diligence and then you have 15 days afterwards to close, that's basically 6 weeks right there. You're right up against your timeline, right? If you got your third-party reports in on day 1 of your contract, which is unlikely. So if you have a contract that has 30 days inspection period and then another 30 days to close, and you have 6 weeks before you get your third-party reports done, understand you're very tight. You're very tight on that. Okay, so just make sure you're prepared for 6 weeks of before those third-party reports come back, and your lender is not going to close if they don't have those reports. And so you're just going to be like, no, I'm not going to do it. You know, it's not like, oh, okay, we'll think about it and we'll try to close. It's like, we're not going to do it. So just be aware of that. They need to get done and ordered very, very quickly. So the longer you wait on choosing your lender and getting your good faith deposit in, the longer it's going to take for your third-party reports to come back. Okay. Let me give you a good one, I think, on legal fees and legal fees with the lender. Okay, so sometimes your lender does not have an in-house legal team and they have to hire a third-party legal side. So they hire somebody else outside of their company to come in and represent them as the lender's legal team. That's what forces you to hire your own closing attorney as well. Okay, so that's generally what happens. They want to talk to your attorney. Now, you may want to ask this. I didn't know this until just this last deal, is that you're probably going to have to pay for that. You're going to pay for the lender's attorney's fees. Okay, so you're paying for their fees. Now, understand that when you're paying for the lender's attorney's fees, because you're also paying for your own attorney's fees, right? Obviously, the lender's attorney does not have hardly any incentive to make this go any faster, or they don't care, right? They're probably working hourly, right? So they're on some type of hourly, whatever it is, $200, $300, $400, $500 an hour that they're getting paid. There's no incentive for them to say, let's get this done fast. It's just kind of like, we'll get this done whenever we feel like it. And so now you have the lender's attorney who could be very, very slow. And you have, even though you're paying for it, you really have no, pressure that you can push on them to say like, hey, get this done faster, right? Because they're representing the attorney, they're representing the lender. So the lender could say, yeah, could you get this done faster? It seems like it's really slow and we're coming up close to our deadline. Well, the lender doesn't care because they're not paying for it. You're paying for it. So why is the lender going to put any pressure on their attorney? They're probably not. They're like, yeah, could you guys just, maybe try to get it done a little faster? Attorney's like, we'll try. It's busy. Everybody's busy right now, though, and pandemic, and we'll do it, sure. So you're kind of in a place where you have no leverage, and you have teams that are working that have no incentive to get things done any faster, and that kind of stirs you up. So I would tell you, I don't know what you can do on that, but just be aware of it. I know what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to negotiate either like a flat fee on that and just say, hey, I'll pay a flat fee for this attorney, and or I'll split that cost with you so that you have to pay for some of this, because this is not good. I didn't really like the way that turned out. So think about that. Hopefully it gives you something to think about if you get in that situation as yourself. All right. Good. Any questions? I see some questions rolling into there. Definitely appreciate those questions. We will get to them. Thank you. I'm going to try to go to number 4 here. So that was all lender stuff. I'll just recap it really quickly here. Use a good mortgage broker, good relationship with them. Think about rate caps, especially right now with rising interest rate, third-party reports coming in 6 weeks, legal fees. Okay. Think about legal fees. Okay. Let's go on to number 4. For those of you who are with me, really appreciate it. Let's go into lesson number 4. Okay. This is the closing. Okay. The closing period. It is, and what I'm talking about is basically the last week and a half of, the deadline, or you're planning to close. So you got to set a date, and then you are, at this point, it's basically extreme hustle. Like it's, you got to be available all the time. So if you're one of the principals who is signing documents, you're a key principal. So you're a KP, and you're having other people who are KPs, and they need to sign documents. They need to be available, because what's going to happen is the title company is going to send them documents that they need to sign, they need to notarize, and they need to get back to them before the closing date. And it's not like they give you like, hey, 2 weeks ahead of time. It's basically like a few days. It's like, here's the documents. Go get them notarized today, and FedEx them back to us tomorrow. And because you're closing the next day, so it's right up against the deadline. So if you're on vacation, if you're on a boat, I don't even know what would happen if you were like on a ship somewhere. Like I don't know how that happens. I think you're probably gonna get screwed. If you're in the desert, or if you're in the Arctic or something, or if you're just in a place where you just don't have great internet access and or access to a notary, and access to FedEx, UPS, or whatever it is to ship this stuff, or a scanner, it's just like, it can cause a huge headache. And you might have 4 or 5 people, generally on mine, I have like 4 or 5 people that are signing documents, including me. Right. So everybody needs to be in that sort of same situation. And you run across, sometimes not everybody's able to not take vacations. They planned this vacation, 6 months ago. So sometimes you're on vacation, and it's like, hey man, I'm sorry to ask you this, but I know you're on vacation, but can you go get this notarized and signed and then shipped off and then scanned and sent back to the title company? So it's like crazy, like madness going around, emails flying all over the place, right? You need to sign documents. You need to notarize. And sometimes it's mandatory that it's in blue ink. So you need to have a blue pen with you, right? And I just went to the notary today, and I'm closing on another deal just this week, but closing on that one, and I had to sign in blue ink. And then I told the notary, you have to do it in blue ink. And she's like, oh, I don't have a blue pen. Can I borrow yours? And I was like, okay. It's like, sometimes they don't think about that. And then, like I mentioned, scanning the documents, wiring the money. You got to wire the money, right? So that you can't, it's one of those things that you have the money probably in your bank account, right, that you set up, or and it's the borrowing entity. And then you need to wire the money. So you need to make sure you have the wire confirmation. You need to make sure you have the wiring instructions, and you probably should, like I said, watch out for wire fraud and call the bank to verify the actual numbers that they gave you are the actual numbers that you should be using to wire the money, because you don't want to wire to some place that there's all the kinds of wire fraud going on. So don't do that. There's a lot of final signatures that are going on. So like settlement statements, this and that. And so a lot of this has to happen ASAP, and you have to be very, very available for all this that is happening. And if you're the only one on the deal, or if you're the main person and you're the only person that's doing all this, I mean, it's like madness. Luckily, I have a team of people, and so we're all kind of handling our own situation and kind of checking up on each other and trying to help each other out. But it could be madness at this point. Rent prorations. So in the closing, there's rent prorations. So we closed on the 9th of this month. So just 9 days ago, right? You close on the 9th. Well, they've collected 9 days worth of rent. Okay. So now there has to be some proration, and they have to know, like, you may close on the 9th, right? But your paperwork was done on the 4th, right? So they have to do paperwork and kind of figure out ahead of time, well, how much is this person going to get? How much are you going to get? Is this amount right? Do you both agree to this amount? Because it's a projection, because from the 4th to the 9th, you have to sign some of this paperwork on the 4th. You have to get it notarized. Like I said, signed, notarized, sent back. But it's actually your close on the 9th. They have to kind of guess, or they have to do some closing trading of these rent prorations outside of the closing period, right? So you have multiple options, but it's not just like, oh, well, I know that on the 9th I should get $10,000 and the seller gets $5,000. You don't really kind of know that, because you don't know how much you've collected up until the 9th. You only know how much you've collected until the 4th, right? So, which means you need to work ahead of time to get those numbers. So can be a lot of madness. I don't know, just kind of hopefully give you a glimpse into what happens at those particular times. But the closing last week and a half, a lot of stuff going on. You got to be very, very available for all those things that are happening. Okay. Let me get into number 5 really quickly. So just transitions. Okay. So this is the transition. This is the takeovers. This is like, hey, now this is our property, or this is the day of, this is our property. We're closing on the 9th. What do we need to do on the 9th? Okay. So what do we do? And I have some great people on our team who really handle a lot of this. Actually, I've had Evelyn on here before, and maybe one of these days I'll get Evelyn back out here to talk about specifically transitions, right? And she's a huge help for this. And for those who don't know her, you should get to know her, right? Evelyn, hopefully, I don't think she's on here, but Evelyn, if you're here, say hello. But property management. Okay, so property management needs to take over. So the property management is taking over on the day you close, right? So they probably need to be out there on site. So they need to fly out there, which means they need to know ahead of time if you're going to actually close on that particular date, because they're going to be there. They're going to be on site. They're going to be doing some things like interviewing people. They're going to interview and hire people for you. They're going to maybe hire your on-site person. Maybe they're going to hire a maintenance staff. Maybe it's multiple people, but they need to do this interviewing and they need to walk the property and get a feel of the property. So your management takeover needs to be set ahead of time, and it needs to happen basically the day you close. There's also like management software. So something that's a little bit different, I would say, not a little bit different, it is very different in multifamily versus self-storage, is that multifamily kind of, you take over the property. It's basically like, okay, this day you close, it's my property now. And the old property management, it's like they leave and your new property management kind of takes over and sends out notices of new property management, things like that. Well, and they take the leases and they kind of, they just take the leases and then they kind of input them and put them into your system. Well, in self-storage, the difference is that usually the management software, the seller has like access to the management software. The property manager has access to their management software. They use software. And oftentimes when you take over, is that your property manager, or you, if you are the property manager, you're going to actually get access to their software and download a lot of that data and then input it in, upload it into your system, right? Now, so that makes a lot of it a lot easier. So now you don't have to sit there on a computer and go, this is a 10 by 10 unit. Number 75 is 10 by 10. Number 76 is 5 by 10. Number 77 is a 10 by 15. And you want to write all this stuff out, right? You just got to download all this data. And then who's there, what it is, what the rates are, things like that. So, but that all takes coordination, and your management software team isn't always ready. Oh, they're not ready at the drop of a hat to just do that transition with you. They need minimum like 2 weeks. Well, I don't know. I'll talk about my team. My property management software needs something like 2 weeks to work with, to kind of set this window that, okay, this is when we're expecting a new property to come inside of our management software, and then we're going to be all set up, and it's going to be live because people are going to be renting today or the next day or the day after that. It's like, it needs to be ready and working. And so it's not just the import, like import and export and that kind of thing. And it's all up and running and everything's good. And it takes 5 seconds. It doesn't work like that. You need to plan with your property manager and your management software team when this takeover is going to happen. Okay. So, and they need time. And then sometimes they're just not able to do it on the day that you're going to close. All right. So that can take a few weeks. Other things, takeover, transition, manage your website, right? So now you have a website. Maybe you need to build a website. If you need to build a brand new website, well, that's probably 6 weeks to 8 weeks that it takes to build a brand new website. If you are like me and you already have a website and you're just adding a new location to your website, well, that doesn't take quite as long, but you want to make sure that your website team, your digital marketing team, is aware of what's going on and they're ready to take over and publish this new site, because it needs to link up with your management software so that your website is saying the exact, is listing the actual units that are available, which ones are not available, what the rates are, and it's tying to your management software. So it's not just, oh, take it over and, make a call and it should be all done and import and export and it's done in 5 seconds. It takes a little more coordination to do this. Google My Business. Here's another thing. Besides your website, you need to take over Google My Business. So you're probably taking it over from the old location and moving it to your new one. Well, you need the access from the old seller. You need the access, and you need to make sure that you've got access and that you can take it over and you now become the owner. Because if you have to start over, it can take a long time. You think sometimes it takes it just takes a few clicks of a button to create a Google My Business. Well, Google doesn't really like it if there's two businesses with the same location and they're like, whose business, who owns what? And why are you coming in saying that you own this business and a totally different name and it's brand new versus this other company who's been there for 10 years and they have 50 reviews, so there's a lot of it doesn't happen ASAP. So you need to plan ahead. You need to do your phone. So your phone, because you're having people are calling and inquiring about open space, right? And if they're calling and all of a sudden you just cut off the phone from the old person and you decided to get your new phone number and you wanted to get a brand new phone number, well, nobody knows your brand new phone number, and they're looking at Google and they're trying to call Google, and Google is sending them to the old phone number, and it might have gotten canceled, and now you just lost a bunch of sales, right? And nobody knows your brand new phone number and things like that. So it might be good to transition that phone number to your accounts. So you take over the phone number. All right. Phone number, internet, alarm system. It's all like that. Take it over on the day that you've closed. You're responsible for it. So you need to prepare ahead of time that you're ready for that. Because if the old seller says, hey, they never contacted me and I'm just shutting everything down, the day we close, I'm not responsible anymore. And they didn't tell me that they wanted my internet. They didn't tell me they wanted my phone number. They didn't tell me they wanted any of my Google My Business. I'm just clicking cancel on all of that stuff. Well, you're going to be you're going to get delayed a lot for all that stuff. Okay. What did I say? Signage. You're going to want the signage, right? So you don't want the old signage up there. It's a bunch of, signage for the old owner. You want your signage up ASAP. So it takes a while to create signage, get that there on site and get that put up so that people can see it. And you start taking pictures of it and putting it on Google so that Google knows that you are now the new owner. Bank accounts. I mentioned before that you need to, I don't even know if that's necessarily in the transition here, but you need to make sure that your bank accounts are set up. Okay. So there was a lot of things in there in terms of transitions and that stuff, but hopefully that's enough for you. But let's move on to questions. Okay. So thank you for staying with me, all you people who have stayed with me this whole time. I'm going to get into some of the questions that you have, and let's see if I can. Let's see what questions you have, and I hopefully can answer. Before I just answer any of these questions, if you do like this, again, I really appreciate it if you just throw me a thumbs up or subscribe if you're on YouTube. Please just give me a thumbs up. Just kind of, helps the algorithm. It helps me to, kind of want to keep doing this kind of thing. All right. So, hey, Justin Radcliffe, thank you so much for joining. Give me the strong arm there, the double strong arm. Appreciate it. Thank you for showing up. Facebook user, are you syndicating the self-storage deals? Depends on the deal. So I have syndicated some of my deals. Generally, I'm doing more of a joint venture. So they're a smaller group of people, and depends on the size of the deal. So I'm looking to do more joint ventures nowadays, I would say. So I don't know. Hopefully that answers your question, but you can do either one. I've done both. Hey, another Facebook user, or it could be the same Facebook user. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Justin, we had a question from you. How does first-time investor with self-storage go about getting a deal done? Ooh, that's a whole topic. That is a whole topic right there. I might have to use that on like maybe my next one. Okay. Sorry, maybe Justin, but I mean, there's just so much, right? I'm trying to get to the questions, and I probably didn't leave enough time for all the questions here. But if you're familiar with multifamily, which I came from multifamily background, if you're familiar with multifamily, it's very similar, right? You actually got to do a deal. You got to do the analysis. You got to do the lending. You got to figure out who's going to lend to you, right? And then once you figure out the lending, you got to figure out the equity side too, like who's going to bring in the money, the rest of the money to close the deal, and then who's going to run the deal afterwards. What type of capex do I have to do on this project, right? Just sorry, I don't mean to cut this question short to you, Justin. It's just like there's going to be a whole session, right? But thank you for asking, and I will write this down so that I can do that one next time. Okay, here's I wouldn't have thought of that either. I think this one came up during talking about the lending side. It was either the lending or the legal side, talking about just making sure that you're aware of like the flat fees and things like that. Okay. You're not here. Actually, you cleared it up. Thank you. Facebook user, you cleared up that you have to pay for their attorney. Okay. Yeah. So you might have to pay for their attorney, right? So yeah, you're not always aware of those kind of things when you're looking at the term sheets, but yeah, something to look at. All right. And OMG, use a flat fee if you can. Hey, I agree. Use a flat fee if you can. I would certainly agree to use a flat fee. Shelly, hey Shelly, how are you doing? Good to see you. Hopefully see you soon. I think probably maybe see you in about a month here down in Houston. So what property management software do you use or would you recommend? So I use StoreEdge, right? It's a group I use StoreEdge, StoreEdge, StoreEdge. It's a good one. It's made by a group called Storable. Storable has like several different softwares that do this. There are other ones out there. It's like one that I was looking into was called Tenant Inc. Tenent Inc. Tenant Inc. So I was looking into them as well. SiteLink is a very popular one. It's made by Storable, the same group that makes StoreEdge. It's very popular. But I would say those have been the ones that I've looked at the most. Okay. Great question, though. Appreciate it. Facebook user. Okay, let's see. Are these items part of the 80 or so items you referred to earlier in this edition? No. So, okay, let me see. When I mentioned there's 80 or so items that were on the lender's list of the lender's legal list of things that needed to get done, right? If you're referring to my lessons learned part of the 80 things, no, it's not. They weren't in there. Those are just legal things that need to get done. So I mentioned that there was about 88 of them that needed to get done on my Houston deal. In my last deal, which was this Connecticut deal, there was 40. So 38 things that needed to get done. So it wasn't as extensive, but it still required a lot to get done. But there's usually that list. There's usually a list of, 40 is on the short side. So I'm thinking it's going to be between 50 and 70, something like that. Okay. Items that need to get done with the legal team. Okay. Hey, Vic, what's going on, buddy? When is the next deal? That is the big question, right? I'm going to tell you, it's, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that kind of stuff on these sort of public forums. So reach out to me, because there's good stuff happening. Okay. Yes. But just so you know, I'm closing another deal on Friday. They're like 2 days from now, but it's like I just kind of throw that out there as like, hey, I'm closing this other deal. It's just that I bought some land right next to one of our properties, and we're just going to expand on it. So it's not really another deal, but I have other stuff that is definitely in the hopper. Let's talk, Vic. Okay, Facebook user, this is awesome. Sharing what you learned. I appreciate. So if you do this, okay, thank you for your comment. Thank you for joining. And let me see. So that seems to be the end of the questions. My last couple things here were, hey, some people ask me, okay, like, what other ways can you get involved? And so I do. There are education programs. A lot of people ask me about education, right? And this is kind of my education for people. Like, this is what I do. I don't have any education courses or programs or anything like that. It's just not what I do right now, right? I'm focused on going and getting more deals. I'm out there trying to go get more deals. And so in that case, I don't really have a education program. It's just, things I do on social media, but I do have a mentoring program. So people have asked me about that. So if a mentoring program, what the little difference is, it's not purely education. It's really just people who want to get involved with me on my deals, right? So they want to join my team on my deals. They want some hands-on experience. If that's you're interested, just send me a note and I can talk to you about it. But I like to take a few people per deal. So, and it's only when I have an actual deal. Let me see. Let me see. Something else I just want to mention here. I do have a real estate investing fund. And so for those of you who are interested in joining a fund, if you're an accredited investor, it's a fund that, basically you're able to invest in either inside of our deals or inside of deals that we've sourced out as well. Just let me know if you're interested. If you're an accredited investor, the minimum investment is $25,000. So it's really not that much to get involved in this fund. And let's see, that is it. That is it for tonight, folks. Thank you so much. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. If you do want to reach out to me, truthfully, the easiest way is just to reach out to me on social media. I would say the easiest way is to try to reach out to me on Facebook, but there's other ways, Instagram or LinkedIn. I just don't check Instagram and LinkedIn as much. I do post on there once in a while, but reach out to me on Facebook. And also, if you look in the description, there's a couple links for my social media links, as well as if you're interested in joining me on an actual deal, learning more about the actual deals that I do. There's my partnership link in there. You can sign up and be notified of when I have a deal. So that feel free to join. Just so the people know that, like, usually that's the only list that I send out deals to. People have asked me, some of my friends, actually, my recent friend just asked me, he's like, how come I don't see any of your deals? I just see the deals that you close. I was like, you never signed up on my list. And he's like, yeah, but I'm on your multifamily list. And I said, not everybody that's on my multifamily list wants to see self-storage stuff. So I have two separate lists. And so I only send it out to self-storage people. So that said, it's been great talking to you. Thanks for joining. Look forward to doing this again. If you do have any questions or things like that, you can reach out to me on social media and push it out, because I'd love to answer the questions to like a wider forum rather than just one-on-one. It helps me to broadcast this out. So if you have any suggestions for topics, happy to discuss any topics that you have, and or if you have any questions, I'd love be happy to answer them too as well. Okay, take care, everybody. I will talk to you all.